Uh, Go ahead.
Thanks, Mark. Welcome everybody. Hope you're doing well. We've had a good week's practice. What you do in coaching is you have a 24-hour rule and you look at what happened in the ball game on Saturday and then again Sunday, and you review it, and then you go out and try to make corrections on Sunday afternoon. We always have a family dinner with all the players, and all the families come, win or lose, on Sunday night, and then you move to the next game. And that's what you do as a coach, what you do as a player. So offensively, we need to stay sharp, continue to improving. You worry that they've been bragged on so much that they'll be complacent, and there's a bad game coming. And that happened to us last year, and it hasn't happened yet this year. But I don't think the offense has looked as sharp this week as they have the previous 2 weeks. So I'm a little concerned about them. There's a lot of youth in that group, and they need to wake up and grow up. And you're only as good as your last play, and really you are what you put on video. So we've got to continue to be more consistent in our running game, especially on the road. I didn't like some of it on Saturday, and we gave up 3 sacks in the first half. And we hadn't been doing that. So offensively, we need to continue to get better. We can't just walk around and act like everything's okay. When you're dealing with young people in college football, nothing's ever okay. You're always fixing everything. And 1 minute doesn't lead to the next. As I've said, I used to think if you just get better each week, what you do is you try to win each week. And that's it, because you're going to be inconsistent in some areas, and you're going to go up and you're going to go down, and you never know who's going to show up. That's the reason college football is so exciting and what it is. And it's crazy. And I think that's why people like it so much and why it's hard to coach. Defense, they've practiced hard. We got to continue to build their confidence back, because they obviously had an awful fourth quarter. So what you do is they've been up and down, and you go back as a coach and you take the good things they've done, which nobody talks about, and you show them you're capable of this, and this can be who you are, and here's when you did well, and here's why you did well. Then you take all the explosive plays we've given up in 2 weeks and show them here are things that are unacceptable, and here's why we didn't make those plays. And it's not about anything other than you making a play. And so we've gone back through both of those and make sure that they've seen the highlights and the positives, and we've got to fix the concerns. And we obviously know we've got to play much better on defense to get where we need to be. And then you go back and look at the first 2 weeks of college football was 0 week for some of us, and then week 1 for everybody else. So many games have been changed or won and lost because of kicking game. So many. And you don't get to practice your kicking game live. And that's why you see so many things that happen early that are bad. But Clemson blocks 2 Georgia Tech punts, and that's a tight game. South Carolina blocks 2 Georgia State punts, and that's a tight game in the late third quarter. Georgia Tech or LSU and Florida State ends up being LSU drops 2 punts. They have a field goal blocked. They have an extra point blocked. They have a unsportsmanlike penalty on kickoff return, which really hurt them. So kicking game has got to be good for you to have a great team, and it's got to be consistent. And ours was the first week, and it wasn't the second week. And to win on the road, you've got to run the ball. You got to stop the run, which is amazing. We didn't do either well last week. And you've got to be good in the kicking game, and we were still able to win the game. So continuing to work hard to execute at critical times and keep working on the kicking game, because we did okay the other day until it really mattered when we kicked off late after the unsportsmanlike penalty. It really mattered until we punted, and we had a short punt in the middle of the field and a good return, which led to a short field. So a lot of times when we talk about defense being poor in the fourth quarter, there was an offensive turnover. There was poor kickoff coverage that gave them the ball to 45. There was poor punt coverage that gave them the ball short. So also some of that. And then we said the 4 or 5 penalties that we still haven't gotten answers back from the ACC office on. We should get those back today so we can see what their thought was. Georgia State, it's like playing Appalachian State. Sean Elliott was a great player for Coach Moore at Appalachian State. He and Sean Clark are very close, so they'll have every thought that Appalachian State had against us. They'll obviously share it with them because they're two programs that are very close to what they do. Granger, their quarterback's different than the one we played last year. They started winning when he came in the program. He's a transfer from Furman, and he can run, quarterback draw, and option. He can throw the ball off a lot of play action stuff, so he's hard to get to and hard to sack. And they can take risk. I remember last year, Coach Elliott faking a punt on us at maybe his only on 10, 15, 20-yard line. So he's going to take every risk. And I know they're going to feel like after they watch the App State game that they've got a great chance to win the game. Once again, we're the only Power 5 team to ever play at their place. So like last week, this will be the biggest game in school history for them at home. And they ran for more than 200 yards against South Carolina, who killed us in the bowl game. And South Carolina ran for just a little bit over 100. And the difference in the ball game were the 2 block punts. This will be the end of our 3-game season, and we start over. So we need to do everything we can do to try to come out of there 3-0. Questions?
All right, thanks, Coach. As a reminder, if you have a question, please use the raised hand function, and we will get to you momentarily. Question 1 today will come from Michael Coe. Go ahead.
Hey, Coach. It looks like there's some pretty heavy rains forecasted for Atlanta this weekend. Is that something that you've been talking about with the staff and with Drake, just, about handling a wet ball?
Yes, Michael, we've practiced in the rain some in preseason because it rains here so much. And really and truly, it's supposed to rain more today down there than it was yesterday. So that may change 2 or 3 times. So we just told the guys, whatever shows up, we got to handle.
And you mentioned the offense hadn't looked as sharp a couple of days in practice. Has it been turnovers? Has it just been penalties? What has that been?
I missed assignments, getting whipped. I think feeling a little cool myself.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Luciano, go ahead.
Hey, Coach. I hope you're doing well, and thanks for your time. After playing one of the most important games in Upstate's football program history, you will be the first Power 5 program to ever visit Georgia State. Do you prepare games any differently when you know that they are that important to your opponent?
No, you really don't. We have worked so hard to talk about playing to a standard of excellence because last year's team was so up and down. And that's why I'm concerned about the offense. I want us to play as hard as we can every week. And that's it. And until we do that, we're not going to be the program that we want to be. We're not good enough to be inconsistent and beat anybody. So we are working really, really hard to play to the standard every day. I've said some of you that don't focus all the time, there's a great chance you won't be focused on Saturday. So wake up, man. Start controlling your mind and understand now that this is important. And the most important thing is to become 3-0.
Andrew Jones, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, with what you're talking about, the offense having sort of a difficult week this week, how much, with all the youth that it has, how much of that is just part of the process, part of it, learning how to not be that way after having some early success?
Yeah. And I probably stated it wrong. This will be the theme of the press conference, and I didn't mean it to be. They haven't been as sharp as they've been. They've still tried. They're still working. But I don't like some of the things I've seen. It's not that they didn't show up. It's not that they're not trying. And it's not that they've had awful practice. So let's don't make that the theme. But they need to play well, and they are young and they're inexperienced, and they got to grow up if they want to have a great season and play old.
And part of growing up is playing at the standard that you're talking about. So that's what I took from what you were saying. It's more just that standard and learning how to be like that every week, regardless of what you're coming off of and regardless of what you're going into.
Yes. And same thing with the defense in the fourth quarter on Saturday. The standard of excellence was played on the second and third quarter. Why didn't we play it in the fourth? And coaches, if we got tired, then we got to start bringing in some other players. And kicking game, you got to do your part, because that goes back to looking bad on the defense. Maybe it wasn't all them. Offense, don't fumble the ball at the 30. So this is the ultimate team game, and it's hard, and there are things that you learn. We talk about teachable moments, and it's hard for people to understand that aren't in it every day. But we'll get down with an onside kick this weekend. We won't have a freshman coming off the bench and taunting somebody at the end of the game, and things like that we learned from last week. And if you can mess up as much as we did last week and still win the game, that's a great plus for your program, as long as you use it to learn and start doing a better job of playing up to the standard that you talk about all the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
CL Brown, go ahead.
Hey, Mack, what would you attribute success so far in the red zone to?
We have worked so hard on being more physical and moving the quarterback in the red zone. And that was one of the keys to improving our offense. We scored a whole lot of points, but we've also kicked too many field goals in my estimation. So CL, more than anything else, it was an emphasis from January 6th. When you had Michael and Javonte, you were just scoring anyway. And you were scoring a lot of points with Diami and Daz from out in the field. And it wasn't as noticeable last year. It was much more noticeable. So we've got younger skill guys now. We have got to score touchdowns instead of field goals. If we had scored a touchdown after Ced Gray intercepted the ball on Saturday, the game probably wouldn't have gotten back close. But we kicked 2 field goals in a row that helped them cut the lead. If we had scored a touchdown instead of kicking a late field goal against NC State, that game would have been over. So the whole point of emphasis starting in January, fewer sacks, which we've done, fewer tackles for loss, which we've done, and score touchdowns in the red zone. And really they're 8 out of 8. So we got to continue to do that and continue to grow on it. But we have worked more on short yards, goal line, red zone situations, 2-point plays than we've ever worked on, because those are things that we had not done well in our first 3 years.
And how much would you also attribute the ball distribution? Like right now, when I look at your offense, there's no telling who's necessarily going to get that ball. It's not like there's one guy, one receiver who always catches the fade or something like that, or one running back. It's a lot of different targets. How much do you feel like that has also contributed to it?
I think it's contributed because we're using our tight ends more, and you use tight ends in the red zone quite a bit. And we didn't do that our first year, and not as much in our second year. So we were better last year, but we've been really proficient at it this year. Second thing is, when you lose Antoine Green and you lose Josh Downs, then you just start throwing the ball to the open guy instead of having a favorite target. And that's healthy for an offense sometimes. And then when we get those guys back and Antoine Green is progressing, I'm really excited about the possibilities of him being on time with his coming back after his injury. So I'm excited for him. And then same thing with Josh. When we get those 2 guys back at full speed, plus adding all these other targets, we have a chance to even be better.
Thank you.
Thank you.
JB Ricks, go ahead.
Morning, Matt. Appreciate you taking out the time as always. I'm just curious about you and your coaching tactics this week when it comes to the defense. Are you laying off a little bit more, or are you kind of being a little bit more hands-on to see if we can improve upon, giving up 61 points, 40 in the fourth quarter? What's your coaching tactics this week with the defense?
JB, I went through that earlier, and you probably were not on here, so I'll go back and touch it again. Basically, what you do is you take all the good things that they've done for 2 weeks, and you show them those things, and you show them why they did it. And then you take the explosive plays that happened the first week and Saturday and show them why it didn't work, and tell them that you are what you see on video. So don't be sensitive because we gave up too many points. Fix it. And you've just got to fix it. You got to fix it as coaches, and you've got to fix it as players. And also when somebody doesn't do something well in our business, these are young people that read the internet, and they know how critical people are. And that's usually the best motivator you can have when somebody's beating you up and talking about how awful you were. Then you want to prove them wrong and you go back to work. And conversely, on offense, what I talked about, when somebody's bragging about you scored 56 and 63 points in 2 games, which just doesn't happen anywhere else in the country. You go back and look at it, and now everybody's bragging on them. So everybody forgets them and just brags on them, lets them go, and everybody beats up the defense. So it motivates the defense more that way too. So we have to have a real balance with kids. There's mental health involved. You get kids that are beaten down by everybody. Then you can't just beat them down because that doesn't help. You got to pick them up. And my theory has always been, when somebody's getting beaten down and they're struggling, you pick them up, man. You show them how to fix it. You show them what they can do to make life better for them and win games. And when somebody's doing really well and it's easy for them, you get your thumb on them and be really hard on them, and don't let them take a breath, because they know that to continue to improve, which is what all of us want to do to that standard we talk about, they got to work hard and be good every day and just not take it for granted that I'm cool and this thing's going to work.
And to follow that up, I know we're only midway through this practice week, but are you seeing anything in particular that's, giving you a little bit of confidence going in to your next game at Georgia State that the defense will improve?
Yeah. These kids always practice hard. They're great kids. And what they got to do is make plays. And it's not about effort, because their effort was good. They got behind and came back and played great, and then didn't play great. So it's the inconsistency that's killing us. And that's what we've got to do better. And we're seeing that better, I think, in practice this week. And it's a completely different offense. Georgia State's going to run the ball. They're going to be physical, and they're going to run the option. And we haven't seen the option yet. So we've had to work a lot on the option and option play action this week as well.
Thanks, Coach. Good luck Saturday.
Thank you.
Okay, back over to Luciano.
Hey, Coach, just a little follow-up on that. Georgia State ran for 200 yards against South Carolina, including 2 40-yard runs. What stood out the most to you out of your running game, and what are the main adjustments you need to make on your run defense, looking at their style of offense and how much their quarterback runs?
You look at what Appalachian State does. They're physical and run the ball, and they run it pretty well against everybody. That's their trademark. Same thing with Georgia State. That their philosophies are very similar. They run a little bit more option. They've got a different type quarterback, but they're going to line up and just be physical and try to beat you down. And with the amount of running yards that we gave up last week, I'm sure they'll just line up and try to run the ball right at us.
Thanks, Coach.
Okay,
Thank
let's
you.
go to Adam Smith.
Hey, Mack. Wanted to ask you, just on the sort of the App State, Georgia State theme. Do you think that, understanding this is a young team that you have, do you think that because of the experience they went through last week in Boone, can that translate to Atlanta this weekend, or does that are these things just different animals in themselves?
The biggest difference, Adam, is that there was a lot of talk about last week's game because it's an in-state opponent, and we had never been there, but they were 42-7 at home. And everybody got an App State buddy that lives near them or next to them. There was a lot of talk about the in-state games last week, and this one's different. So it's important for our Georgia guys. Probably they'll talk to more buddies at Georgia State and down in Atlanta. We have a lot of Georgia guys, but it's just different. And that's why, as a coach, you try your best to get your staff and your players to play to a standard instead of a team. Because if not, you're going to be up one week and down the next. And that was so miserable last year. And I just couldn't stand it. I didn't ever know who was going to show up. So I want a team that shows up, and a staff that shows up every day to practice as hard as you can and as good as you can. And that's why the offense has been good this week. They haven't been bad, but they have done some things. They've gotten whipped some by the defense. They've done some things that I didn't see in the first 2 weeks of games. So I'm making sure they're aware of that going through. But I don't want a team that shows up sometime and doesn't. Alabama was one of the best teams in the country when I was at Florida State. We were awful. and Coach Bryant was the coach. And we went into Tuscaloosa with no chance to win. I think it ended up being 7-3, and they had to score right at the end of the game to win. So you never know what's going to happen with these games. And it's just it's one of the beauties of the sport, is because there are so many upsets in college football, and upsets in college basketball aren't as glaring because you play so many games. These games are so valuable because we don't play many. We play fewer games than anybody in sports, and that's why each one of them matters so much. I remember Augie Garrido at Texas. He got beat by, I think, Dallas Baptist in his opening baseball game, and his press conference afterward, he said, "What a great experience for us to learn. We've got a long year, and we can learn a lot from this." And I thought, we line up and lose to Dallas Baptist, and it's not a learning experience; it's a firing experience. So it's just different, and that's just part of the sport that we coach.
I didn't think you were going to pull Augie out of the hat there.
Augie, a dear friend, and here's a guy won 6 national championships or something. So I mean, he may be the best baseball coach ever. So still, it's just the approach you have to take.
The freshman that you have left unnamed on the penalty on the onside kick, did you have him running the stadium steps? Did you have like some extra discipline for him? Like, how did you handle it with him?
No, we handled it like we do any other penalty. We sit him down and talk to him, show it to him, and show him that's embarrassing and it's something that is not acceptable at this place. And he's very apologetic and he's very sorry he did it. And like I said, I was mad at him at one point during the game because he's sitting back there on the bench with his arms folded, not saying anything. And I should have gone back to stir him up then and say, get up here and get involved and be involved. And then when I didn't need him involved, he got involved. So that's just part of the learning process. So I don't think we'll see that happen again. I don't think we'll see us rush the field again. I don't think we'll see us go to the crowd during the middle of the fourth quarter again. I don't think all those things that showed up that aren't who we want to be Saturday will show up again.
Very good, Mack. Thank you.
Thank you.
Coach, that was the last question we had for you today. So thank you so much for your time.
Thanks. Y'all travel safe. We'll see you Saturday.